Good afternoon. How are all of you? Finished eating? Getting there? Man, I felt like I had to rush in. I'm from Tulsa, so it is really rare that I do actually get to speak in Tulsa. As funny as that sounds, you'd think I would do more here locally, but I do spend a lot of time on the road. So this is a real treat for me here, too, to be able to speak for a little bit today with you all. I know they said I only have 3 hours, so I'm going to get right to it. I'm just joking. But it's been a while since I've been downtown. Our headquarters used to be downtown. We used to be in the Beacon building. Anybody in the Beacon building currently, just for fun? I used to be just like a block over in the Beacon building. But in 5-6 years since we've been out south, man, the downtown has changed so much more again. And the parking, I didn't really know what to do. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, if you can't figure out parking, why are we going to listen to you today? Well, I didn't say you had to listen. I'm just here to create some value for you, hopefully. But I am glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I do get to speak a lot in my career. It's one of the fun things. I do get paid to talk, but I also love to plant seed. I love to serve, and I love to be of value, especially to the local community. So it's a real treat for me to get to be here too. I'm past the point in my career where a paycheck makes a difference on what I create value with or not. I love any opportunity to speak into people's lives, and so I hope you're ready to take a little bit in today too. You're going to notice a few things about me, probably two very specific things very quickly. One is I've never been accused of speaking slowly or not having enough content. So I've only got about 45 minutes or so, but I'm just going to bring it and hopefully you'll create value. I always tell people if you just learn to listen just a little bit faster, you'll catch up to me. Then I won't have to slow down and I can get it in like 45 minutes, but I'm normally taking an entire day. Are you ready for that? Okay. I know they say the worst time to speak is when? Right after lunch. But we're not technically after, we're still during, so we're going to be all right. So I'm not real good at staying on a stage. So I'm going to move this up just a little bit. And I think we're in an intimate enough setting where you can see me. Is it going to cause a problem for you, the camera guy, if I come down a little bit? You still okay? You good? All right. Are you prepared back there? Did they warn you about me? Oh, I'm supposed to stay. Okay. I forgot. He's like, no, they didn't tell me about you, but they didn't tell me about him. I'm not supposed to move. No, I do want to create some value for you all today. I know there's many different companies represented here. There's many different reasons why you're here. I know there's some different things that put out in the material about what to think about and there's some questions to ponder as I speak. But, you know, ethics is a powerful, powerful topic. And I know there's many different probably verticals or perspectives that you could come at ethics. And one of the places I start, especially when I'm fine-tuning it to a group like this, is I think one of the most important places to be ethical is with yourself. And I just mean that, and some people say, you know, being in integrity with yourself. If you think about business, and you think about why sometimes people compromise their ethics at one level or another, what do you think are some excuses? Why do some people eventually find themselves in a situation where they will compromise something that has to do with their integrity or their ethics? It's because maybe it's easier. Pressure. What else? Scared. By the way, I'm not asking any of you why you would. We're talking about people outside the room. Nobody in here. We're just brainstorming here openly. Somebody you know. Maybe because they're fearful, but, you know, I've been blessed to be able to be speaking now for 2 decades all over the world, and I do a lot of, I've been called a lot of things in my career. Most of them have been good. You know, motivational speaker. I've been called the shorter, affordable, non-cursing version of Tony Robbins. I've done a lot of consulting. I've done a lot of business consulting with Fortune 500 companies and smaller companies. A lot of times we're talking about performance or results-based type things. People bring me in for that kind of thing to work with companies. But I've noticed sometimes when somebody isn't performing at the level that they would like, or they're not producing the results that are being asked of them at the level that they would like to do it at, sometimes people are tempted to do different things. So one of the things I always work with people is, how do you produce more? How can you create more yourself without ever being tempted to cut a corner to create something more? Does that make sense? So I think when you have a peace or an integrity or an ethical relationship with yourself, you'll produce at a higher level of efficiency. You'll be more profitable. You'll be more productive. It's when we get out of integrity with ourselves. Like we think, well, I can't do it that way, or I can't get there fast enough, so then we look for a shortcut. And if you know, they always joke about, you know, all the debate about legalizing marijuana. They say that's the gateway drug to many other things, which is one of the biggest arguments against it. Well, the gateway drug to ethical lapses is people looking for shortcuts. It looks like a shortcut, and then it turns into something maybe later on. So I think one of the ways we just kind of steer clear from that is how do we look at ourselves, and then how do we as individuals create more so we're less tempted to look for those kind of things. And so if there's an area, and I say this with humility, so please hear my heart, if there's an area that I've been accused of being efficient at or good at or effective at, is really helping people perform at a higher level, whether it's individuals or companies or groups or departments. That's kind of my niche, like peak performance. I know sometimes that sounds a little cliche-ish, but I kind of take it to a level of just where are you looking for in life. You know, I put this quote on the board on purpose because there's not a time so far in almost 2 decades that's never been on a flip chart when I speak. You cannot walk towards your greatness. You can only walk away from it. Now, greatness is a bit of a different word for some people. It's not the normal word that's always used, but just so I can make sure that we're all on the same page, how would you all define the word greatness? When you read that, before you talk about the entire definition of it, how would you define the word greatness? Let's start with that. What are some definitions for the word? When I say that, what are the first things that pop in your mind? Not everybody at once, just one person at a time. Your best life, okay. Excellence, what else? Maybe purpose, passion, whatever those things are. And it doesn't matter to me what you define it as. I just want to make sure some people go, well, I'm not really great, or doesn't greatness make you feel like you're better than somebody, or like you're being conceited or you're bragging. For me, greatness and purpose are the same word. Have any of you ever read that book that came out years ago called A Purpose-Driven Life? I believe it was by Rick Warren. One of the best-selling books ever, A Purpose-Driven Life. Because when your life has purpose, you'll do more than if your life does not have purpose. If you're clear on what that purpose is, you'll be less likely to take shortcuts and compromise other areas if you have a purpose, if you have a reason, if you have a greatness. I call it that. So for me, it's kind of like, how do you live your greatest life? What is that greatest life for you? So when I talk about this in this context of the quote on the board, you can't walk towards it. I believe you can only walk away from it. So what I mean by that is I think if we all thought about people we know maybe outside the room, for example, there's a lot of people searching for greatness. Have you ever met somebody like that? Yes or no? They're looking for something, and they're telling themselves, hey, if I could just get over there, then I would be great. If I could just earn this kind of money, then I would be great. If I had this amount of net worth, then I would be great. If my spouse would just do what I told them to do, then our relationship would be great. You know, or my kids. You know, oh, there you are. I hit the spouse relationship part there. You know, then it would be great. But the greatness is always conditional on something that we find somewhere else. I'm suggesting that we have what I would call the starter kit, or the starter package, if you will, of all the tools that we need to live a truly great life within us, if we will choose to just look. So I don't think it's something that you've got to go and find. I think it's something you've got to kind of, I don't know, awaken or, I don't know, discover, because it's already within us. And my experience has shown me that we all have it. I believe every single one of us have some type of greatness. It looks different for all of us. It might be something that has to do with your job, your employment. It might have something to do with what you do outside of that job or employment. You're going to learn real quick today what I'm sharing with you can create value, obviously, in a workplace. But what I'm really sharing with you today will create value for you no matter what place that you're in. You know, the companies that bring me in, that hire me, I'm often very flattered because it's the companies that truly care about their employees, because what they do when they bring me in to pour in to their employees so their employees can have more tools, more ways to manage their lives more effectively and take home what I'm teaching them, because that's where they care about. And because they know if they can help them outside of the office, then is that employee more likely to help the company more effectively inside the office, yes or no? And so when companies have the foresight to bring me in, they're actually pouring into you as an individual. So you're going to learn really quickly what I'm sharing with you today. Yes, of course it can be applied in a business employment type setting, but really I'm going to challenge you to look even beyond that and take some of what I want to share with you home today, because I believe one of the biggest things that people wrestle with is their life in general. We all have something. We all have obstacles, or am I the only one? We all have obstacles. We've all had struggles. We've all had seasons of survival or barely just sustaining. Maybe you're in something like that right now. We all kind of chuckled when I mentioned relationships. That's a big area that we bring into the workplace. You know, if you talk about ethics, when you're working, when you're at in a company, I think it's part of our personal responsibility to bring as much of us as possible to that place so we can be productive, we can be creative, we can work together and have conflict resolution, all these different tools that kind of go into successful work environments. But a lot of people, again, nobody in the room, you might have met somebody who brings their outside life and that kind of drama into the work environment. Have you ever noticed that? Yes or no? And those are some of the biggest things, as we all know, companies struggle with. So I think even learning how to take responsibility and managing your life more effectively is an ethical position for us to take as individuals, so when we do go to work, we can bring more of ourselves to that. Just no different than when you go home. How many of you like bringing your work home? No. In that direction, what do you want to do? You want to bring your entire self home so you can be there for your family without that. So I just want you to think about greatness today, really however you would define it. What would you like to have more of? That was one of the questions that I gave as a discussion topic for you just to ponder. And I know people default to money a lot of times. I'm okay with that. But I'm really thinking about, in context of what I'll be sharing with you in the next few moments, is what is it you're looking to have more of in life? Significance, fulfillment, peace, joy, connection with a spouse, freedom, a better relationship with your family, with your children. And of course, there's nothing wrong with wanting to have more financial health either. That's absolutely a part of it. But what is it for you? And more importantly, why is it that we can be so clear about things that we like to have? And I'm going to suggest it's probably not the first time you thought about it today. The thing that you're probably pondering about what you'd like to have more of is something that's been on your mind or in your life or your desire to have for quite some time prior to today. So what keeps us from living our greatest life? That's what I like to talk about. What will rob you of living your greatest life? Does that make sense? And because I talk about this, and I like I said, the audience is big and small. Doesn't matter to me. I just love serving people because this is part of my greatness, helping other, kind of like fanning somebody else's flame, helping them unlock their greatness because I believe in what goes around comes around. But think about this for a second. What are the things that could rob you of living your greatest life? What are the things that could come between you and what it is you'd like to be experiencing? A lot of times we look circumstantial. We look to the environment, and we're really good at pointing fingers and blaming and saying everything else. And that's more of a victim mentality than a personal responsibility mentality. Saying, well, it's the environment. Oh, it's the job. Oh, it's the political stance. It's the, whatever it may be. We often go there, but I love to do my best to empower people within themselves to take their results to another level if they're not satisfied with where they're at. I always tell people one of my things I'm passionate about is, helping people to stop settling, stop tolerating, stop accepting what it is you're getting or been creating, and learn how to start creating what it is you say you want. Most people say, you've probably heard somebody, well, this is just the deck of cards that I was dealt. This was the hand I was dealt. This is just how it must be. Well, I believe there is a perspective understanding there, but I don't believe that has to be the final answer or the whole truth. I believe we do have a role to play if we choose to. I want to share with you just a few things that I think will create a lot of value, and I only have a short period of time. It's always, I'm used to speaking for a day or a couple hours. I have to think about what's the most important thing I could give you that you would take out of here, a deliverable that you could take home from here and really use. And that's what I'm going to jump in here in just a moment. When I say everybody has greatness, sometimes I get questioned and people go, well, Keith, if everybody has greatness, then why do so few people truly walk in it and so many people don't? Like if I said, what names pop into your mind? When I say somebody who's lived a life of greatness, lived and or are living, somebody's living their greatest life, what names pop into your mind as examples of that? No judgment, no right or wrong. We all have difference of opinions possibly, but Tony Robbins? Okay, yeah, sure, absolutely. Who else? Jesus, absolutely. Who else? And there's there's Jesus. I forgot about that guy, right? Yeah. We are in Tulsa. Hello. Tulsa, Jerusalem. Yeah. Who else pops in your mind? I have those people hanging. I have a hall of greatness in our headquarters. And so far you've named two that I have hanging as examples. Who else? I'm sorry? Beyonce, sure. No, I do not have Beyonce on my wall. We've done this now. No, I'm just joking. But yeah, only because I only have so much room. But who else? What are some other examples? Miami, absolutely. Who else? Martin Luther King. Who else? Who? Mother Teresa, absolutely. Think about it. Nelson Mandela, Winston Churchill, Michael Phelps, most of the time. Warren Buffett. It's not about what name you say. It's about, do you have a picture of somebody you think represents that? So when I say I believe we all have greatness, we can't walk towards it, we can only walk away from it. So many people go, well, Keith, if that's true, if we all have greatness, why are there so few people that truly live it and exist it, why so many others don't? Does that make sense? So there's a distance between these two people. Would you agree with that? I mean, if you talk about it in the realm of economics, it's they call it the one percenters versus the other thing else. And that is a fact. It's true that this I've been blessed to become a part. I'm just in a new guy in the club over here. They've let me in. I'm just kind of over the line a little bit. In the top 2%, but the top 2% own 98% of the wealth on the planet. And then the 98% are sharing the 2%. And that's part of the big debate, in economics and political debates about why that happens. And there's a lot of reasons to go into it. But I think there's a bigger role that we even have to play in it. And it's not about just an amount of money. Remember, it can be about happiness, fulfillment, significance, legacy. What are your legacy footprints? What are you committed to leaving behind, not just in your job where you work, but in your family, in your community? If you have a faith background like I do, in that realm, it's a bigger game most of the time than just what we see in today. But a lot of times, we settle for something less. We settle, we tolerate, we accept. And those are things I challenge people to stop doing and give them a few tools to start teaching them how to create what it is they say they want. So this gap between this group of people and that group of people, I call it the gap effect. There's a distance between that group of people and this group of people. I call that the gap effect. And if you're just taking mental notes, you may want to think this, or if you're taking written notes, you may want to write this down. The gap effect is the distance between where you'd like to be, between where you are and where you'd like to be, in any of those areas I've mentioned so far. And I think if we're going to be honest, I'm not going to put any of you on the spot because this is just a corporate lunch that you came to eat at and everything else, compared to one of my big 2-day events or something of that nature, or in a consulting contract. Just want you to ponder it. I'm going to suggest in any of those areas that I just mentioned a moment ago about greatness, we probably have a gap in at least one of those areas. And remember, a gap is the distance between where we are and where we'd like to be. That's the gap effect. So what creates the gap? Let me ask you this. How many of you have ever met somebody outside the room that has at least one gap in their life? This is the participation. At least one person outside the room that has a gap in some area of their life. Yeah, these are really nice and easy questions. We all do, right? I do. And we have more than one. So that's one thing I often point out to people, that people go, yeah, you know what, Keith, you're right. I've seen that. I've seen that in my business. I've seen that in my life. Or maybe I have it in my health or my marriage or my finances. There's a gap. There's a distance between where I am and where I'd like to be. So the question becomes, how do you eliminate the gap? How do you identify it, eliminate it, and prevent it? Does that make sense? That's the gap effect. But before I jump in too far, let me ask you if you've ever noticed this. Because on top of the gap effect, again, I'm talking about maybe somebody outside the room. Have you ever met somebody who not only doesn't create what they say they want, but they will continually and consistently create the things they say they don't want? Have you ever noticed that? So not only will they not create the things they say they want, they will continually and consistently create the things they say they don't want. How do we operate in that capacity? We have a clear picture of what we would like to have, where we'd like to be, but not only will we not create that, but we'll create the thing we say we don't want, and we'll create that over and over and over again. Isn't that an interesting thing to think about? And by the way, don't make yourself wrong or right. It's not about shame or guilt or any of that. I'm just bringing it's an awareness to say, wait a second, what causes the gap effect? What causes that gap? What causes or is beneath somebody not creating what it is they said they've wanted, and they continue to create the things they say they don't want? I want to explain that little phenomenon to you today. I think if I can explain that to you, I'll at least scramble your brain enough to give you something to ponder, at least on the way back to work. Maybe the rest of the day. You might even still be on your mind when you fall asleep tonight. If it goes past that, then I've done a really good job. But sometimes I've seen this grip people and they go, oh, something totally different. Because I do believe we all have greatness, whatever that may be. I believe that's how we are all designed. And a little bit of that's my faith background, so I hope that's okay. I do believe we have that ability. But why do so many people walk away from it? So I'm going to explain it to you. I'm going to do a little drawing. I'm going to warn you ahead of time. I don't draw nearly as effectively as I can communicate, but I think you'll track with me and you'll hold the line with me, and I'll explain something if you don't see what I'm drawing, and I think you'll create value. So it's about where do the gaps come from, why they're there, and why do we not produce what we say we want, but we'll continually, consistently produce the things we say we don't want. I'm essentially going to teach you how to identify gaps, how to eliminate gaps, and then how to prevent the gaps from coming back into your life. Would that create value for you all today, yes or no? Would that be a good walk away? All right. So I'll stay up here so you guys can see this up here in the flip chart. And as I'm drawing this, I really do want you to think about something in your life that you like to have. This isn't one specific company that has brought me in, so they haven't said, hey, these are our goals, these are things we're working on, so I don't want to handle this presentation from that standpoint. So I'm just going to put it on to you as an individual. What is something you're wanting to create more of in your life? What would you like to have more of, whatever that may be, any area? And then I want to teach you how to have a higher likelihood of getting it and help you maybe even unlock why you don't have more of what it is you'd like to have already. So this right here is a good picture of the ground, okay? It's flat, like most of Oklahoma, especially when you go west of here. This is a house, right? It's not an up arrow. When I ask the audience, I've learned to stop asking the audience on that. What is that? They go, an up arrow. Well, I can kind of see that. It's a house. For today's purposes, it's a house, all right? And the house is full of people just like us. It's full of people who want more of at least something in some area of their life. This person wakes up. They said, you know what? Today's the day. I know without knowing you, because I've had 2 decades of experience, that there's something we all want that we think about. This person decides today's the day. You know what? Today's the day I get more. Comes out of the front door of the house. They're excited. Today's the day I want more. Gets so excited, just screams, comes out, oh, I want more, and screams it. So loud, wakes up a neighbor. Neighbor comes out, says, hey, I thought I heard somebody yelling out here. Is everything okay? Like, no, that was just me. I was just yelling, I want more. And the neighbor goes, hey, you know what? So do I. Actually, I want more too. So they yell together, I want more. And guess what happens? Another neighbor comes out. Well, before you know it, the whole neighborhood's out chanting, I want more, I want more, I want more. If you think about it, it's kind of an analogy of a little bit about what our world sounds like today. Wouldn't you agree? Yes or no? And by the way, is there anything wrong with wanting more? Of course not. Anybody who tries to make you feel wrong for wanting more is someone who tried to get more, didn't get it the way they wanted it to or as fast as they wanted to, and gave up that more is possible, and now they're trying to convince you the same thing is true, so they'll have somebody to hang out with. Because if you can do something different, that means they could have done something different that they chose not to do. So they have to tell themselves more doesn't exist, and they tell themselves that by trying to make people who want more wrong. There's nothing wrong with wanting more. About maybe why you want it, you could look at that. That's some interesting questions you could dive into if you wanted to. But anyway, the whole neighborhood's saying, I want more, I want more, I want more. They're chanting it together. But somebody finally goes, wait a second, but how do we get more? Everybody knows they want more, but the question is, how do we get more? And before you can even think about it, somebody pipes up and says, hey, I heard, before you can even think about it, somebody says, I heard that if you will paint your front door green, you will get more. Somebody even begins to say, wait a second, paint your front door green? That doesn't make any sense at all. But before they can even say that statement, what is somebody already beginning to do? Paint their door green. Nobody knows why, but because somebody said that's how you get more. So somebody starts painting their door green. Before you know it, what's everybody doing? They're all painting their door green. Nobody really knows why or how it really impacts getting what it is you say you want, but it's what everybody's doing, so it must be right. So they all go to bed with a high level of expectation that night that tomorrow's going to look different because they want more, and how do you get more? You paint your front door green. They wake up the next morning, come out, what's different? Not much, except for there's a lot more green front doors in the neighborhood, right? So now, they're like us. Hey, they tried it, it didn't happen. But they don't want to give up yet. Like, wait a second, I really do want more. And they start chanting it again. I want more, I want more, I want more. And somebody goes, I get it, but how do you get more? Same thing happens. Somebody says, I heard if you'll paint your roof blue, you'll have more. Doesn't make any sense. But somebody starts to do it. Before you know it, everybody paints their roof blue. Next day, same thing happens. They come out expecting something different, and nothing is different, except there's more blue roofs. See, this is how most people live their life. They hear about something they think they know, and they're only working on the surface of their life, but they're going around and around and around and around and around, trying to get more, because they never really learned how to get more or how to produce at a higher level. They don't understand what's created the gap between where they are and where they'd like to be, whatever that more is. And they definitely haven't figured out why they want more, but they won't produce that, but they'll continually and consistently produce the things they say they don't want, because they're only working on the surface of their life. Now, I'm not suggesting, I do have a bit of a real estate background as well as an entrepreneur. It's one of the areas I've chosen to invest into. I understand the value. It's important to have a good roof. I understand that. I'm not saying a roof is useless. It's important to have a good front door, In the industry of consulting, when I work with companies, I would call, the blue roof the how-tos. You go, how do you do something more effectively? They're valuable, but all by themselves, how-tos are not enough. Well, Keith, just tell me how to get more, and I'll go get more. How-tos, does anybody know why how-tos are not enough? Let me phrase it this way. How many of you know, I won't ask you to raise your hands, but I'll just ask you to mentally raise your hand. How many of you know there's at least one thing you could be doing to get more of what it is you say you want that you know you're not doing? See, it's not the knowing. We know what to do different, but most people don't do what they're told to do, and they don't even know what they know. They don't even do what they know to do. There's something in our life. There's at least one thing, if not more, and I'm being generous because the same thing is true in my life, by the way. There's at least one thing that we already know to do that we're not knowing that we're not doing. We're choosing not to for some reason. That's what I'm going to get into in a minute. So it's not just about the how-tos. Are they part of the formula? Absolutely, but all by themselves, how-tos are not enough. The green front door in my industry, it might be called motivation, the excitement, the passion. Motivation, do you need motivation? Yes or no? Absolutely, nothing happens without motivation. But all by itself, it's not enough. Why? What happens to motivation over a period of time? It diminishes. So that all by itself isn't enough. There's something deeper, if you're willing to look, which is why I'm here to share with you today, that's beneath the how-tos, that's beneath the motivation, it's beneath the surface, if you will. If you truly want to dive into how do we create and live a greater life, or how do we create the results that we say we want, we've got to be willing to look somewhere different. And the most important part about this house that I haven't drawn yet is the foundation of the house. And by the way, just make sure you're tracking with me. Am I really talking about a house right now? Yes or no? What am I talking about? Us. Who we are. This is how most people live life. 98% of the planet spend their life up here running around and around and around and around trying to figure out why we're not producing more, why we're not figuring out, where's the drama coming from? It's something beneath the line in who we are, beneath the surface. But that's a struggle for some people because they don't want to work there because it's not the thing people see first. They want to do the exciting stuff, which is where everybody's always looking. But if you really want to take self-performance to another level, if you want to begin to accomplish something that we have in the past, you got to look somewhere different than we have in the past. So what I'm going to suggest is we look at the foundation of who we are. Now, I want to give you something in advance, out of sake of time, because I want you to be thinking about it for a minute as I kind of start drawing this out, because I think you're going to start to see it. But I want to kind of give you another, like a little taste of something. And I'm just going to give you a quote. If you're just taking mental notes, great. Remember this. If you're taking written notes, you will definitely want to write this quote down. Okay? I'm going to explain this quote, so whether you understand it right in this moment or not is okay. I'm going to walk you through it and make sure you understand it before we go today. Okay? Here's the quote. Oftentimes in life, people create results. Oftentimes in life, people will create results out of their need to be right, not necessarily successful. Oftentimes in life, people will create results out of their need to be right, not necessarily successful. So the question you want to ask yourself is, what is it you're looking to be right about? Now, that's a very big question. I'm going to explain the power of it in just a moment. But if you want to know why people don't create what they say they want, but they'll continually and consistently create the things they say they don't want, that quote, if you begin to understand it, can have the power literally to shift the results that are in your life. Oftentimes, more than not, people will create results out of their need to be right, not necessarily need to be successful. So the question is, what are you looking to be right about? And the reason that's important to understand at this point is because whether you knew it or not, which I'll show you and I'll prove to you, what you're looking to be right about are the things that are in your foundation, the things that are down here. So if you want to think about where does the gap come from, what creates the gap, it's something in our foundation. We're talking about how do you identify the gaps, how do you eliminate the gap, and how do you prevent the gaps from coming back up. And remember, the gap is the distance between where we are and where we'd like to be in really any area of our life. So the first step in this journey is called self-awareness. Self-awareness is the ability to look at your foundation. Self-awareness is the ability to look at your foundation. Now notice I said self-awareness, not others' awareness. We're already experts at being others aware, are we not? We always know why everybody else's business isn't where it should be. We always know why somebody else's marriage isn't what it could be. We always know why somebody else's kids are acting the way they are. This isn't others' awareness. This is self-awareness. It goes back to that old parable maybe you've heard before somewhere, maybe. Why are you so concerned with the speck that's in your brother's eye or sister's eye, when you have a log in your own eye. We're talking about self-awareness. Self-awareness is the ability to look at your foundation. Say, Keith, okay, I follow that, but what am I looking for? What you're looking for in your foundation are the stories that are in your foundation. You say, Keith, hold on a second. You lost me. Okay, let me just wrap it back together here for you a second. How many of you would agree that events take place in life? You've had an event take place in life, or your life is a collection of events. Something takes place. A lot of people blame why they're not where they would like to be on an event that has taken place in their life. Well, Keith, if you just knew my story. Keith, if you just knew my childhood. Keith, if you just knew, and it's a story about something that's happened as an event in their life. But what most people don't recognize is events all by themselves don't mean anything. Did you know that? The event doesn't mean anything. We make up the story to the event. It's two separate things. Most people combine them, but it's actually two separate things. An event takes place, and then because of our human nature, we cannot stand to have something not mean something. So then we make up a story to that event. And where does that story get registered? In our foundation. So let me back up for a second, because I know some people are like, wait a second, I don't think that's right. My events, they've mean, no. The event all by itself doesn't mean anything. But because of our human nature, we cannot stand to have it not mean something. So we make up the story. We make up the meaning. It's not the event. I'll prove it to you. For any event that you would come up to me in private and blame for why you're not where you would like to be in your life, I can probably tell you a story about somebody else who's had that exact same event take place in their life, and they blame it why they are on the journey to being where they would like to be in their life. Does that make sense? Think about traffic. Traffic's an event. You ever been in traffic? You have to be if you come in downtown Tulsa from south, either on a BA or 75 with all the construction over the years, or when Riverside was closed, all that nonsense for years. Traffic. People get stressed out. They get frustrated in traffic, right? And not all people. If it was traffic and it was frustration, anybody who was in traffic would have to be frustrated. You know who's not frustrated in traffic? A delivery driver who gets paid by the hour. They love traffic. My dad, he's a truck driver in Dallas. He loves traffic because he gets to relax because he's getting paid no matter what. So see, it's not the event. It's the story that we make up to the event. Everybody follow me, yes or no? I wish I had more time to get in that a little bit more with you. So self-awareness is the ability to look at your foundation. What you are looking for are the stories that are in your foundation. And when you find the stories, you're not making the stories right or wrong. You're going to simply ask yourself a question. This is a very important question. Is this story serving me? Is this story serving me? Oftentimes in life, people will create results out of their need to be right, not necessarily successful. So the question you want to ask yourself is, what is it you're looking to be right about? Whether you knew it or not, what you're looking to be right about are the stories that are in your foundation. That's why it's so important to be aware of them. So that's the first part of awareness, looking for the stories. That's also why it's important to ask yourself, is this story serving me? Because do we have stories that serve us in our foundation? What do you think, yes or no? Oh, absolutely, of course we do. Of course we all do. And those are the stories you want to keep. But those aren't the stories we're going to talk about today. You want to know why? Because it's not the stories that are serving you that are creating the gaps in your life. It's not the stories that are serving you that are keeping you from creating what it is you say you want while you continue to create the things you say you don't want. It's the stories that do not serve you. Does that make sense? Yes or no? See, if I could show you, man, if I had more time, this is why I love doing this, but I'm always wrestling with a short time frame, but I think you all will get it. If you knew how much of your life was being dictated by the stories that are in your foundation, it would floor your mind. 95%, this is Psychology 101, 95% of the decisions you think you're making, you're not even making. Did you know that? 95% of the decisions that we think we're making, we're not even making them. You know what's making them for us? I know it's a little sciencey and a little psychology language. It's our subconscious. What do you think forms your subconscious? Stories. What do you think reinforces the subconscious? More stories and time. And stories in your foundation are just like cement. The longer you leave them untouched, the harder they are to move or break. And that's why some people feel like they're stuck. Keith, I'm doing everything I know to do. I'm doing all the right things, but I'm still not getting where I want to be. It's the stories that are in your foundation. Now, some people struggle, and I'm going to get to this really quick. I think it's important, even if I don't get to everything else. Does anybody have a pair of sunglasses handy? A pair of sunglasses? Anybody? I think somebody's digging for one here. Great, it's a female. These will be really great. Okay, I appreciate that. Appreciate you bringing ones that would work for me. These are very trendy. Okay. So now it's funny. Now I'm good. Now the crowd's participating. Okay, sunglasses. I need to remember to do that earlier in my presentation. Get the sunglasses out. So we're talking about creating results. Let's see here real quick. Where can I find somebody here? Susan? Everybody role play with me. These are green sunglasses. So everybody got me? We're on the same page? I want to show you how powerful this is because there's something running you and limiting you that you're not even aware of most of the time. These are green sunglasses. Everybody on the same page with me? Yes or no? Susan, that is a beautiful green blouse you have on underneath your blazer. I love that. My wife loves green. Would you mind telling me where you purchased that beautiful green blouse? I'd like to buy my wife one because she loves green. If you were being honest with me, what would you tell me? You would say, Keith, it's not green. It's white. And I said, Susan, quit messing with me. Just tell me where you bought it. My wife loves green. That looks good on you. It's going to look great on her. Where can I buy it? If you're going to tell me the truth, what would you tell me again? It's not green. It's white. And then I would say, Susan, any fool can see that it's green. Why do you keep on acting like it's not? Just tell me where you got it. If I really start to press at that level, what would all you begin to say? Keith, it's your what? And I would say, what glasses? Because see, if you're not aware, you don't even know sunglasses exist. If you don't know they exist, you don't know that every single thing you're looking at is filtered through something you don't even know it's on the front of your nose. And we just assume that everything's green. And the truth is, if you can take this a little bit deeper, I don't even know that green's a color. Why? That's all I know. Where do we get our sunglasses from? Where do you think you get filters from in your life? Experiences, childhood, tradition, religion, media, family, all those different things. That's where we get our sunglasses. The events of life. Sunglasses, an analogy for what? Stories. So see, self-awareness is going, oh wait, there is something on my face. So this is what I get paid the really big dollars for, right here. I'm going to give it to you right in the middle of this thing. I'm going to tell you, you guys would be floored if you knew how much money people pay me for this. Okay? Talking about creating a large amount of change in a short period of time, right? I help people discover sunglasses. I help people figure out the programs or the stories or the filters that are running their lives. As soon as I figure out that they exist, I'm like, oh my gosh, they are here. What's the next thing that I can do? On a count of three, everybody snap their fingers. 1, 2, 3. I can now see a color that I never even knew existed. Simply because I identified a story that I didn't even know was there that was running my life. Let me give you another note. Thank you for letting me borrow these. How many of you love to go fishing? Anybody fishers here? We moved our boat to Destin this past year, so we boat down there, but until then we were at Grand Lake. Anybody ever go to Grand Lake? Or heard of Grand Lake? Or familiar with the concept of Grand Lake? I like to ask questions everybody can answer yes to. We got to go fishing. My kids love to crappie fish, and we were at Arrowhead Yacht Club, and there are great crappie beds underneath that dock. And my kids, I was the cleaner. My kids don't like to clean the fish, but man, they would put minnows in, pull those crappie right out. And I think about this concept often when I watch my kids fish, because here's what I think about the fish. As every time I see my kids pull a fish out of the water, here's what I think about the fish is thinking. That's the first moment they knew water existed. Think about that. They don't even know water exists until something pulls them out of it. Follow that? Sometimes we don't even know stories exist until somebody pulls us out of it, and so we can see a different perspective. Or we take the sunglasses off. A fish doesn't know they're in water. They weren't raised by their parents and go, hey, we're in this thing called water. This is this liquid thing you feel. Don't ever go up there. That's air. That's what I mean. They don't know. They don't know anything else exists other than what they've known until they're pulled out of it. Does that make sense? That's why I get paid so much money when I go into companies or I work with big, private, large audiences because they're looking to create something different. I help them see something different, and as soon as you can see something different than you've never seen before, it's all back on the table for what you can create. Are y'all following me? Yes or no? So let me ask you this. What do you think And I'm going to only take a few based on sake of time today. What do you think are some stories that might not serve people in their foundation? What would be an example of 2 or 3 stories that might not serve somebody in their foundation? That's an event. What story could they make up to a bad childhood? Maybe I'm not worthy. Does that sound good? What else? Okay. What else? We're limited. What else? Divorce is an event. What story do we make up to it? I've been through one. So this is not a teaching example. I've been through, my fault. I'm not lovable. Unforgiveness is often a part of that. We can look at insecurities. I'm not worthy. I don't deserve. Doubt, anger, bitterness, unforgiveness. I mean, there's so many different things that can be in here that we choose not to look at because we just keep on going through life. But these are all examples of stories that don't serve us. So when you discover these stories, remember, number 1 is self-awareness, the ability to look at your foundation. You're looking for the stories that don't serve you. Number 2 is called self-governing. Self-governing is the ability to exchange the stories out of your foundation that are not serving you for ones that will serve you. So when you find a story in your self-awareness and you go, wait a second, is this story serving me? The answer is no. You want to self-govern it. Self-governing is the ability to exchange a story out of your foundation that's not serving you for ones that will. I'm going to wrap this all up here in just a minute. But stick with me just for a moment. This is super important if you really begin to get it. Self-governing is the ability to exchange the stories out of your foundation that are not serving you for ones that will serve you. It's important that you have stories in your foundation that are serving you. Why? Because the results on the surface of your life are being dictated by what you believe is true about you. Another way I say it is this: you're never going to outperform your own self-portrait. If you don't believe you deserve, you're never going to create something that you deserve. If you don't believe you're lovable, you're going to get into another relationship and you're going to prove right why you're not lovable. Does that make sense? I'm going to show you this. Remember that quote? Oftentimes in life, people create results out of their need to be right, not necessarily successful. So the question you want to ask yourself is, what is it you're looking to be right about? Whether you knew it or not, what you're looking to be right about are the stories that are in your foundation. Now, I know I'm giving you a lot fast, but just keep that sunglass mentality in mind. There might be something here that maybe you've never thought about or saw before. So I'm going to give you a quick couple things here. If you're writing this down, you can put event here, the word story over here. This is how it works. And by the way, what I'm going to share with you right now, these are not made-up teaching stories. These are actually real events from my life. I grew up financially without, and I told myself because I had less than most other people I was around in my life, then I must be worth less than other people in my life. So I grew up financially without. I made up a story that said I'm worth less than other people. Could you see how I can make up that story to that event? Yes or no? Okay. Could I make up more than one story to that event? Absolutely. I was sexually abused by my basketball coach when I was in high school. Story is, wow, that's an older age than normal. Somehow it must be my fault, and I've got something I need to be ashamed of or embarrassed about. Could you see how I can make up that story to that event in my life? Yes or no? I've been through a business bankruptcy. I told myself, because I co-signed a note at a very young age to help somebody, and they came back later and sued me because I was the only one that had money that was left. And I told myself, man, when I help people, I get screwed. Could you see how I can make up that story to that event? Yes or no? I've been through a divorce. I teach relationships. Nobody's ever going to listen to me again. Could you see how I can make up that story? So I'm just giving you a sample here as I begin to close. This is what happens. Events take place in life. All by themselves, they don't mean anything. But without knowing it, because this is part of our human nature, part of Psychology 101, we make up a story, and 9 times out of 10, we make up a story that does not serve us. That story gets put into our foundation. Then oftentimes in life, people create a result out of their need to be right, not necessarily successful. So the question you want to ask yourself is, what story is it you're looking to be right about? That's why oftentimes people will not create what it is they say they want, but they will continually and consistently create what they say they don't want. I did it. I grew up financially without. I told myself I was worth less than most people. Did you know in life, you will actually go back out in life and create more events so you can be right about the story you made up? When I was in junior high and high school, that's how I felt. That was my insecurity. I would actually go back out in my life and create events. I'd get in trouble. I got in fights. I got disciplinary actions, all this kind of stuff in high school to prove to myself that my story was true. You become your own worst fulfilling prophecy. Does that make sense? And this is why most people get stuck like this. Remember this circle? Where was this at? That's how it happens. An event takes place, we make up a story to it, and we actually go back out in life and create more events so we can be right about that story, even if it's not serving us. So in closing, think about this for a second. I'm going to give you an example to go home with. 6-year-old little girl. She asked her father for a baby doll for Christmas. That's all she wants. Christmas morning comes. She opens up all of her presents, and there's no baby doll. Now, my wife says I say doll funny because I'm from Missouri, but I think it sounds totally normal. Isn't that how we say it here, doll? Doll? No? No baby doll. Is that an event, yes or no? No baby doll. Is that an event, yes or no? All by itself, does that event mean anything? No, but what most likely will that little 6-year-old make it mean? Give me some examples real quick. Daddy doesn't love me. I'm not worthy. I don't get what I ask for. There's something wrong with me. I'm not lovable. I can't love my dad. I don't trust my dad. I can't trust me. It could go any direction. All those stories go into that young lady's foundation. She doesn't hear about anything we talked about today, even though I did it fast. They're just in her foundation. She can't figure out why she's not getting what she wants in life. Let's add 20 years onto her young life. How old is she now? Just making sure you're following me. You put her in a beautiful ballroom just like this. She's looking for Mr. Right. Somebody will love her, treasure her, cherish her, honor her, all those different things we would all look for in a great relationship. You put her in a ballroom just like this with 99 great men and one jerk, and you give her 2 hours to pick who she leaves with, who would she leave with every single time? Because that's what she wants? No, because that's what fits her story. She doesn't even know she's got sunglasses on. And then around and around we go in life. That's what creates the gap. The foundational stories that don't serve us, that we're not paying attention to. We're looking for everything else, but we haven't slowed down enough. Most of the time in people's lives, they don't slow down enough to look and say, hey, wait a second, what's really running me? I didn't even realize that 95% of the decisions I'm making are being made by my subconscious. I did not realize my subconscious is a conglomeration of all the stories that I've put in it to events in life. Because, see, I can make up stories to these events that are positive. See, what you got to do, and this is your homework assignment, is you've thought of something when I shared this with you today. I don't need to know what it is. And I don't even need to nod you to head to affirm that you thought of something, because I know you did. I've done this long enough to know. You've identified at least a handful of stories in your foundation that are not serving you. And we can't figure out why we're not getting what we want in life, whether it's the happiness, the fulfillment, the joy, the significance, the money, whatever it may be for you. It's because we haven't looked for what's really driving us at a root level. You've heard this before. We're all our own worst enemy. I'm just trying to explain to you so you can see it, so it can make sense, so you can do something about it. So your homework assignment is this. Tonight, as you're falling asleep, with your head on your pillow, think about this. What stories do you have in your life that aren't serving you? And you got to exchange the story. Exchange, it means rewrite it. Make up a story that will serve you. Make up the opposite. I'm going to give you a hint. It's the exact opposite of the own story. I am worthy. I don't have anything to be ashamed of. I know when I help people, people help me. The fact that I've been through divorce and the relationship that we have now with our son and a co-extended family, I have more value to bring to people that end up having to go through that difficult season, because not only can I help them maybe avoid it if possible, but if it's not possible, I can help them walk through it the healthiest way possible to maintain the value of the young kids that are involved. Does that make sense? Yes or no? See, those stories all sound really good, don't they? Because I made them up. I always tell people, if you're going to make up a story, which we do, make up a story that's going to serve you, because the results of your life depend upon it. Why do people not create what they say they want? Why they'll continually, consistently create what they say they don't want? Because oftentimes in life, people will create results out of their need to be right, not necessarily successful. The question you want to ask yourself tonight is, what stories have you been looking to be right about? And ask yourself, are those stories serving you? Or are they robbing your greatness? Because see what happens, most people settle, tolerate, and accept. You know what happens? That's how they spend their life. And the most valuable real estate in any community is always the cemetery. Because it's the most buried potential that's been laid to rest there. The most unrecognized dreams and unrealized greatness is always laid to rest there, because people end up settling for something less than what they were created to be or have or do. And it's not about being unhappy with where you're at. It's about being content. I got it, content. Be happy with where you're at on the way to where you're going. But contentness and complacency are two different things. Be content. Don't be complacent. Be open to look and see, hey, what's not serving me? Maybe this is in your marriage. Maybe it's with your children. Maybe it's in your health or your faith. You can apply it to any area of your life. And I just wanted to pass that on to you. I know it was quick and fast and in a lunch setting. It may not have been exactly what you were thinking you were going to hear today, but I can promise you this, not because of me. I'm a mouthpiece, if you haven't figured out or not. I've been given a gift to steward that's God-given. And these are, in my opinion, principles that are faith-based at some level or another. So I didn't even make any of it up. I'm using it, but I'm a mouthpiece and a vessel to communicate to other people, to challenge people to really look at it, because I love helping people live their greatest life. That's my passion, to help you take something in your life to another level so we can stop existing at the level that we are. There's a reason why our world is in the condition it's in right now. It's because so few people are walking in their greatness. Think about that as a father, as a mother, as a family member, extended family, or as a business person, or as an employee or a coworker of a company, the things that we could bring to the table. If we took this on and exchanged the stories out of our life that didn't serve us, what could we create together? And that's really the value that I do when I work with people. So hopefully you created a little value for you as an individual today. I appreciate Travis helping me set this up and inviting me to be here. Thank you so much, and I look forward to hopefully serving you all again in some capacity. If not, have a blessed day. It was a pleasure to be here.